Let's take a pause. And as we sit, observe emptiness. Be with the experience of no things. Notice the sensation of one apparent thing, that is, the sense of being me or I, or a kind of energy of simply being present to a seeming emptiness. Like feeling, being. Notice this. And from this sense of being, listen with the ear of the heart, or with the knowing of the experience itself. We might say, here is happening, and notice that there is no person it is happening to. Here is simply happening. And the person, the usual idea of a body and a mind and a story, isn't necessarily or absolutely happening. These are concepts or ideas that here we'll choose to set aside. Is there anything I need to do to know being here? Or is here simply here? Am I having to offer an intention or focus my attention on anything? Or is the only thing, the one thing, being here? We have loosened the sense of having a grip on being a person throughout the day that does things, tasks, thoughts, feelings. Here is self-knowing, self-illuminating, accepting. It is as it is. It is unlimited and undivided by any concept, word, feeling, or idea that rises and falls or appears and disappears. As we see, here is happening. But I am not making it happen, and it is not happening to me. Here is. here is so radically ordinary, so plainly simple, it is easily overlooked by the apparent seeker that seeks to experience something, a feeling, happiness in objective relationships, or pleasure, or the fulfillment of desire, or the claiming of mastery of works, or enlightenment, or a perfected spirituality, or freedom from its past, or trust for its future. None of these thinking mind concepts are required to know here. The knowing of here is the only known. The usual mind, a movement of thought, feeling, sensation in the body, and reference to memory, can be seen here as ideas, concepts, and interchangeable things, not required to know here. In fact, without the usual application of thought and thinking, we cannot absolutely locate the mind. And every activity, every task, every plot, plan, program, and performance of the apparent person that seeks to evidence its activities as successful towards attaining happiness can be seen, as we abide here, as limits imposed upon here that take us away from a here that these same activities and plans, programs and paths desire to bring about with their good intentions. Nothing is missing, and so nothing need be added. We can see that we are experiencing and if we set aside the experiencing of a voice, we're not pointing to the experience of something, we are pointing to the quality of experience itself. Ask yourself, am I knowing experience? Am I experiencing? It takes no distance nor work to answer or to know the truth of the inquiry. And am I knowing experiencing? Is experiencing something that has the knowing quality about it. Notice knowing experience. And awareness of knowing, experiencing, is undivided. Whether we are experiencing a voice, whether our attention is turned to this voice, whether our attention is turned to the absence of the voice, thus, or whether we rest or abide as the experience itself. We are self-aware. As we set aside all seeking and a concept called a seeker, even spiritual seeker. Set these aside. This is not the knowing within the relative personality that knows this from that, or knows either this or that, or this, then that, and that, and that, and that time, that place, that person, that task, that difficulty, that joy. All of these objects are that being listed in this experience, or being created in experience by the application of language. Or we could say animal, husband, wife, past, present, sadness, ecstasy, food, slavery, left, right, in, out, concepts, things, objects. Temporary things, and each temporary thing, even joy and sadness, are replaceable by another temporary thing. And if the personality seeks happiness in this world of things, of forms, we find fleeting happiness by the possession of things that bring us joy, by the way in which we accumulate or reject objects. And when we like them, we're happy to call them my things. Take possession of them, claim them. If there are activities or tasks or works, we say, my work. We are identified with the observed things. And overlook this formless observation in which all things, all forms, rise and fall as concepts. This habit of attaching to the forms and the conditioned identity that relates to forms is the dominating human experience. So our institutions and our hierarchies and our individuals inside of them or outside of them collect forms and objects which they believe bring them power and status and esteem and approval. Once such relative feelings are experienced, we desire or we crave more in order to bring about further experiences of esteem, approval, worthiness. And in the absence of such feelings, we experience a lack of something that we have known to experience esteem, approval, worthiness, and power through. So we crave them once more, we search for them once more, and we measure that which we have against those that do not have, and relatively feel charitable or superior accordingly. Our world is based on this hierarchical structure for life. Our world is in fact largely top-down, as we all crave for success addiction and comfort addiction. Denigrating others as inferior or superior accordingly. Such is the power of our attachment or addiction to the identity which needs this relative worlds of forms to prove to no one but itself its own worthiness about its collection of things and its works at attaining them. All of these often well-intentioned searches, yet all too often poorly intentioned searches, overlook in the search for happiness and peace the very same happiness and peace in which they rise to an apparent mind as apparent thought forms, and from the thoughts, attitudes develop that seem to belong to me and are my attitudes, and these attitudes are mine. I have these attitudes, and from these attitudes we action, behaviors, undertake activities and tasks to attain or reject preferences that we like or dislike, so that when there is a perception that the right things are in the right order, we experience happiness and peace and love with a small l. In how we feel about ourselves, our work, and our things. And the predicament of this worldwide way of being, as we've seen, is that things are replaceable. A feeling we like, happiness, is replaced by unhappiness. Joy, ecstasy, can be replaced by despair and misery. And once we have known joy and happiness and have apparently lost it, so we desire the experience we have already known, and so we seek once more happiness and joy by the way in which we accumulate, modulate, and reject things. We might all roughly see how the world operates in such a way. If there's an experience of not enough, we will seek enough. And in a world bound by enough and not enough, there will always be competition, as we vie for resources, as we clamour for more of what stopped working, to replace what didn't really work anyway. And we will fight for power and dominance and superiority, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking. And we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Yet, in this approach, as we turn the mind inwardly as sincere seekers, we begin the undertaking of meditations, and we apply techniques and spiritual seeking. Some of us come to the end of the seeking. Some of us continue to spiritually seek, but some of us come to the end of the seeking. And some of those recognize this spiritual predicament. And in such a recognition, seeking ends. And when fully embodied, the seeker evaporates too in the realization and embodiment of a luminous, energetic sense of simply being. And the knowing being of this present, formless, undivided, empty, nothing, or in religious words, God consciousness, expressing itself as an apparent something that we cannot finally label or name, because it isn't a thing. It is the knowing of everything without a second.